Obviously, as that river starts to freeze, the draw that we're going to get is less and less as it starts to freeze more.
Tonight, drawers of water and hewers of ice. Canadian Armed Forces personnel help Iqaluit residents get through a prolonged water crisis.
Over the past 7 days, an average of close to 2,500 new cases were reported daily across Canada, which is 11% higher than last week.
It's not over yet. The fourth COVID-19 wave continues to rack up the numbers right across the map.
What we've been asking for, and I think, most parties, agree that there is a sense of urgency required to safeguard some old-growth areas in our territory.
And the provincial government in British Columbia says their plan for a harvesting project could save old-growth forests. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. It was recently announced that former TRC Chair Murray Sinclair will oversee negotiations with the federal government over how to compensate First Nations children and families entangled in the child welfare system. The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered that Ottawa pay $40,000 to each child and family member taken away and placed into the child welfare system or affected by it. Late last month, a federal court upheld that order. At a press conference following the ruling, Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Mark Miller announced that the government would appeal, but he promised to negotiate a solution on compensation. Sinclair will now chair those negotiations, but faces a tough deadline of reaching a settlement before the end of this year, one that could be worth well into the billions of dollars.
The water is flowing from the Sylvia Grinnell River, and the armed forces have managed to filter it and make it drinkable without boiling. 24 soldiers have been working here since late last month to get this reverse osmosis water plant up and running. It was -12 at the river today. This equipment had only been used in warm climates until now. As everyone in Nunavut knows, cold weather makes machines develop problems.
Cold weather, it starts with the freezing of the river, for one. Overnight it was 4.5 inches of ice that formed. Having to break that, have the pumps, get a submersible pump, make sure that the lines aren't freezing, the pumps aren't freezing. It just goes on and on with the cold weather.
Here's how it works. Water is pumped from the river to these holding tanks. Here, the water is warmed before it's filtered through this machine. It forces the water through ever smaller screens until it's clean, roughly 5,000 liters an hour. From there, it's pumped to these holding containers, where it waits for city crews to show up with the water trucks. It takes about 30 minutes to fill one of these trucks from the bags.
Coming up north and operating these rope systems is not something that we do on a regular basis. These rope systems have been used for a lot of disasters in the past, Haiti, the Philippines, what have you. We've made history by coming up here and into the north and providing drinkable water.
The weather will not be getting warmer until spring. Can the armed forces keep this up? If so, for how long?
Well, what it's going to affect is what we're going to be able to take from the river. Obviously, as that river starts to freeze, the draw that we're going to get is less and less as it starts to freeze more.
We don't know just how long they'll have to keep this up. It has been 32 days with bad water already for Iqaluit residents. The latest Government of Nunavut word is that they hope to have the results of their investigation by late next week. The city is holding a press conference on Monday to update residents. So for now, the Army will filter the water, the city will deliver it, and residents will continue to wait and hope. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Well, as the nation braces itself for a rise in COVID-19 cases, some of the northern communities are getting hit hardest. APTN's Tamara Pimentel has this report on some of the COVID hotspots across the country.
In the Northwest Territories, a 10-day containment order is in effect for Tuktoyaktuk. The remote northern hamlet has been hit with 72 active cases.
It's a ghost town right now. It's really challenging right now for the community because of our limited resources there, but we have had a lot of support from GNWT.
Tuck's Mayor Erwin Elias says for a community this small, this has been a learning curve. All non-essential businesses are closed. Masks are mandatory and schools have switched to remote learning.
It's been a huge problem. We went right back to, I don't know if we call it phase one, a year and a half ago, where we really tightened up the restrictions.
A territorial rapid response team has been sent to Tuck to help with local healthcare workers, and the containment order is expected to end at midnight on November 19th. In Quebec, Nunavik, which is home to 14 Inuit communities, has the highest infection rate in the province. 30 new cases have been reported this week, with 259 active cases. Health officials say the risk of catching COVID in Nunavik is the highest it's ever been. And the same goes for the Yukon.
To respond to this unprecedented spike in cases and increased risk of transmission, our government has declared a state of emergency.
Yukon Premier Sandy Silver says announcing the state of emergency allows the territory to implement new measures. With over 150 cases, the usual masks are required in public spaces, and residents are reminded to maintain social distancing. But now territorial public service workers who are not fully vaccinated by the end of January will be placed on unpaid leave until they comply. Silver encourages everyone in the territory to get vaccinated if possible.
The vaccine remains the best form of protection against COVID-19, and they are also our way out of this pandemic.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Calgary.
And a warning today from health officials in Ottawa. COVID cases are slowly but surely climbing again.
During last week's modelling update, there may be bumps in our trajectory over the coming weeks, with further easing of public health measures and as we spend more time indoors during the cooler weather. Over the past 7 days, an average of close to 2,500 new cases were reported daily across Canada, which is 11% higher than last week.
One of the messages Dr. Tam drove home was the importance of wearing masks, adding that they should fit properly. With Christmas Eve only 6 weeks away, doctors were asked if holiday gatherings could be in jeopardy. Their answer? It depends on the region, but families should start having conversations about vaccination and mitigating risks. Going back to the fit of the masks, Dr. Ronald St. John says that the fit of a mask is an integral part of its function.
The idea is to get the best possible mask, even if it's the light blue one, but wear it correctly. Make sure that the little metal band is pressed around your nose and it's tucked under your chin, including covering your facial hair and so forth. That's going to be a major deterrent for transmission. If you can get an N95 mask, even better, but it's harder to breathe through an N95 mask. So it's balancing out risk.
Several provinces did away with mandates over the summer, only to bring them back when community spread started to become an issue once again. Well, the Power of 100 is a group who want to have a 100% vaccination rate for Indigenous people across the country. They've held Vax Fests in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan with a festival-like experience to attract young people to get vaccinated. And now they're holding Vax Fests in northern Alberta. The Lubicon Lake Band on Saturday and the Woodland Cree First Nation on Sunday and Monday. The event will offer prizes, music, and interactions with social media influencers. Dr. James Makosis, a Power of 100 co-founder, says attracting young people who have been reluctant to get vaccinated is critical.
We know that in the prairie provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, that the rates of vaccination amongst our people is quite low. And because of that, we're experiencing infections at 13 times the rate of non-Indigenous people. And we're seeing devastation in terms of elders passing away, knowledge holders passing away, ceremonial leaders passing away, traditional medicine people passing away. And what we can do to protect them is ensure that the most number of us are vaccinated.
It's been 50 years since Helen Betty Osborne was murdered in the Pas, Manitoba, and this weekend the community will reflect on the widespread impacts of her death. The teenager from Norway House Cree Nation in northern Manitoba was abducted and murdered in the Pas back in 1971. Her murder and the mishandled investigation sparked outrage and in part led to the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry. It wasn't until 16 years after her murder that Dwayne Archie Johnson was charged with second-degree murder. He was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. 3 other men involved in the abduction were never jailed. Her family and her friends are gathering for ceremonies this weekend in the Pas to honor her life. Well, it's time for a break, but when we come back, we will get into how the province of British Columbia plans to appease Indigenous groups and big logging companies and save old-growth forests. Stay with us.
What we've been asking for, and I think, most parties, agree that there is a sense of urgency required to safeguard some old-growth areas in our territory.
British Columbia recently announced they will be deferring logging on some of the province's old-growth forests. The Sikas First Nation has called for a stop to logging in their territory and are optimistic about the move. APTN's Lee Wilson has more.
Today, this deferral package is the start of a path towards changing our forest management regime to one that focuses on ecosystem health.
Gary Maracle says it's a new day in forestry, with the announcement of 2.6 million hectares of old-growth deferrals. He is part of the BC government's technical panel tasked to transform forestry. Earlier this fall, Sikas First Nation called for deferrals of old growth in their territory. Sikas councillor Jasmine Thomas says they are in talks with the province and are optimistic about the changes.
What we've been asking for, and I think, most parties, agree that there is a sense of urgency required to safeguard some old-growth areas in our territory so that we can move forward to those longer-term resource management planning processes.
The BC government identified 11 million hectares of old growth in total in the province. 3.5 million hectares are currently off-limits to logging. This deferral of another 2.6 million hectares would protect more than half of BC's old-growth forests. But the government says it will take 2 years to iron out exactly what areas will be permanently protected.
The deferrals last a couple of years, and that is to ensure that while we're negotiating with First Nations, while we're working with them in partnership over what to protect and how, we have the time to do it properly so that it's not rushed, but we're also not logging those forests while we're talking.
The Ministry of Forests estimated the deferrals would impact about 4,500 forestry jobs in the province. There will be money coming to help forestry workers.
Retraining opportunities and other things, because we are also in the business of transforming the forestry industry in general into a much more sustainable one, in which we have many more opportunities for people to work in forestry while making the forests themselves a lot more sustainable than we have in the past.
First Nations have been given 30 days to give their response to the deferrals. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
Middle school students in Yellowknife will be taking their studies around a fire and in a wall tent. A new outdoor education centre has opened in the city. Our reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs has that story.
Rain or shine, this will be a classroom for students at Mildred Hall School in Yellowknife. Grade 7 and 8 students are participating in a ceremony to celebrate the opening of a new outdoor learning center, with prayers and YK Dene drummers to mark the occasion.
The use of the outdoor center makes a major contribution to the physical, environmental education that enhance many of our curriculum areas.
From kindergarten to grade 8, students will take a portion of their studies outside every day. Cherise Lafferty is excited for hands-on activities.
Learning about our culture and stuff, learning about stuff in the land. I think today we're going to learn how to make mitts or moccasins. Moccasins today.
And to learn from elders.
They tell us stories and about fish and stuff, boating, lots of stuff.
Michaela Liscochilia says she feels energized when her classroom goes outdoors.
Like learning about the culture, like cutting ducks and fish.
And why do you think you'll enjoy that kind of stuff?
Because I've never really got to learn it.
Every public school in the Yellowknife Education District now has an outdoor learning space.
To be on the land, learning traditional ways of doing things.
Denegati facilitator Sheila Stewart says it's an expansion of culture camps.
So they didn't want it to be just one day a year. They wanted to have that experience more often within their school day. So some of the schools said, well, we want a wall tent in our yard. That way we can go outside and we can do it.
And every subject can be taught in this way.
Well, science, they could skin animals, and they can incorporate math with that by taking, an example would be skinning a beaver and a muskrat and comparing those two in science, and then taking the intestine and maybe measuring the lengths of them. Why is this one shorter, or that longer, and how much longer, or how much shorter, and why is it?
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
You never get sick of those stories. We'd love to see more and more of those. Well, we have to take another short break, but when we come back, we are remembering Lee Maracle. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Looks like Diamond, this adorable little Chihuahua, is all ready for winter. Thanks for his owner, Maureen, for sharing that. You should get out this weekend, take a bunch of pictures, send us the best of the best, and you can send it to share@aptn.ca, and your photo might be featured as our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at tomorrow's weather forecast. To the east coast, we've got 6 and showers for St. John's, 16 and rain for Halifax, -4 and sunshine for Kuujjuaq, -10 and sunny in Inukjuak. Sept-Îles, 7 degrees with showers, Val-d'Or 0 with chance of flurries, 5 and rain for Ottawa, and 6 and showers for Toronto. Kapuskasing, you might have some snow, 1 degree. Same with Wawa, -2 in snow for Tsulukaut, -1 in snow for Churchill. God's Lake, -3 and snow. Snow continues down south, -1 for Winnipeg, -3 in Dauphin. -3 in Yorkton, snow there as well, 1 and snow for Saskatoon. -4 and snow for Stony Rapids, -3 and snow for L'Orange. Sunshine and 3 degrees for Peace River and Grand Prairie. Rain for Fort McMurray and 3. 7 in Red Deer, sunny skies there. 8 in Lethbridge. 8 for Kamloops as well. 5 and sunshine for Quesnel. 0 and sunny for Fort Nelson. 4 and sunshine for Prince George. -14 in snow for Dawson City. Old Grove, -12 in snow there. Wrigley, mix of sun and cloud, -10. Yellowknife, you're going to get some snow, -9. -12 in snow for Sax Harbor. Colville Lake, you're going to be -5 with some snow. Snowing as well in Baker Lake, -11. -17 in sunshine for New Yacht. Joe Haven, -11 and snow. Tallyoak, -12 and snow. Sexual exploitation crosses class, gender, and race. Anybody can be a victim, but it's often marginalized people who are most at risk. Tonight on APTN Investigates, journalists Kenneth Jackson and Cullen Crozier examine the impacts of sex trade this is having on the city of Kenora. That's in northwestern Ontario. Kenneth Jackson joins us now from Ottawa. Kenneth, thanks for joining us. What led you to this story?
Well, we went to Kenora for a human trafficking story in child welfare, and we're meeting with people that I've known for contacts that I've made over there. And we ended up meeting a woman who told us her life story. I'm from Shimate, and how she was involved in the sex trade in Kenora, how she helped other women on getting the sex trade, and how some of her clients were. So our story really started with child welfare and went a total different direction.
So, and what did you find when you started looking into Kenora's sex trade?
It's, you know, in Ottawa, I covered it a lot, and in Ottawa, it's online ads. You have clubs, you have escorts, higher end stuff, I guess you would say. We have street level prostitution as well, or sexual work. If you want to call it that. I don't like calling it that because it's not really a choice. But in Kenora, it's all street level. It's all rooted in the street. It's all played out on the street, and on the street, you have a high population of Indigenous people who are homeless, struggling with addictions and trauma. It's all trauma, rooted in trauma. So all the women that are in the sex trade that I could find and speak to are Indigenous. And those are the people that are being preyed upon by what I would say is the white people of Kenora. They know where to go and find on these girls and women.
Well, that's what I was going to ask as well. So who are the customers then? Customers would be a pretty crappy way to describe them, but...
Well, you have older white men, who lure them away from various locations where they know they're there. But prominently, it's, one person that we focused in on was a cop, or is a cop with the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, and that's a big part of our story tonight. And it's already online. You can go look at it too. But it's an OPP officer who's now under investigation.
Love it. Well, we will be sure to tune into that tonight. Kenneth, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You can catch In Plain Sight Part 1 just a few minutes from now following APTN National News. Well, some sad news now. Lee Maracle, a solo author and poet who helped pave the way for Indigenous writers, has died at age 71. Maracle, one of the first published Indigenous authors in Canada, died in Surrey, BC yesterday. Her first book, Bobby Lee, Indian Rebel, was published in 1975. Maracle was known as a social justice pioneer in the community, and she taught at the University of Toronto. Her work often featured Indigenous women facing patriarchy and colonialism. Hundreds of comments have flooded in on Maracle's Facebook page from fans and friends praising her life and her work. She will certainly be missed by many. Well, that is a wrap on your Friday night news. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night and stay put right now for APTN Investigates.
Yeah, yeah.